The first animals that we talked about were sponges, and they had no true tissues, and they also had no symmetry. Now we're talking about animals, and the rest of the animals we will be talking about do have tissues. They all have muscle, at least during some stage of their development. They all have got nerve tissue. Not all of them have brains, but they all have a nervous system. And they all have some kind of a stomach or entire digestive tract. The first guys we're going to be talking about are these guys, the cnidarians. Cnidarians are sometimes called cnidarians, so however your lecture instructor discusses them. But the cnidarians are the only animals that actually have got radial symmetry. That means that they don't actually have a head. And the reason that that's okay is because the cnidarian lifestyle is either just floating around in the oceans or also sessile, the way sponges can be sessile. So let's have a look at those guys. So the cnidarians. One of the things you should know about the cnidarians is that I can't make that go away. Okay, one of the things you should know about the cnidarians is that they come in two basic, what they call body plans. Two different body plans. One of the body plans is the medusa named after the Greek myth creature, right? The medusa. And the other one is the polyp. The medusa is generally the lifestyle of a jellyfish, and the polyp is the lifestyle of something like coral or a sea anemone. Okay, so medusa, the jellyfish, or polyp, something like a sea anemone. And they really are the same basic bodies. It's just that the medusa is this way, floating around in the ocean, and the polyp is like, boom, and it's glued itself down. The medusa floats around free in the ocean, and the polyp is sessile. So when it comes to the cnidarians, they've got a very simple body plan. It could be medusa or polyp. And one of the things that they have in common is they all have got a stomach. The stomach technically is called a gastrovascular cavity. Why? Because the water that's inside of it actually lends itself to some of the shape of the organism. Now, these guys have invented nerve cells so that the different parts of the body can very quickly communicate with each other. They also can sense something on their little tentacles or big tentacles, and that can cause them to grab it and pull it and stick it into its gastrovascular cavity. They actually have muscles. Now, one of the things that the Cnidaria have that no other animals on planet Earth have are nematocysts, which are also called cnidocysts. So cnidarians have cnidocysts or nematocysts. Now, these are the parts of a jellyfish or a sea anemone that will sting you, and it hurts, okay? If you get stung by a jellyfish, it actually are these very specialized cells called cnidocysts that did it. And cnidocysts are fascinating on their own. If you ever feel like going down one of those rabbit holes of looking at different animal videos, they really are quite remarkable in how quickly they can sting you and the way they kind of pop open to zap into you. By the way, the cnidarians are animals in this category, the cnidaria, are the most poisonous animals on planet Earth. Do you see, this is the head of a match right here. That is an irukandji jelly. That irukandji jelly has got venom that is 100 times as potent as the venom of a cobra. I really do not know why it needs that much venom, but there are jellyfish that can cause a person to die before that diver can even be grabbed out of the water and gotten back into the boat where he can get medical attention. That's mostly down around Australia. Australia's got a lot of venomous things around it. There are some jellyfish that are very big. Like, look at that guy. That guy's about 3 feet in diameter. He's not as venomous as the irukandji jelly. And the venom is made and released by the cnidocysts, which are also called nematocysts. The cnidarians are carnivores. We've talked about jellyfish. We've talked about sea anemones. Sea anemones look like that. I also should tell you that there is another type of cnidarian called coral. Coral are cnidarians. Coral are sessile, so polyp style cnidarians that live in a colony. And each one of them creates a little hard tunnel that it lives in with its little tentacles sticking outward. And together, as they form a colony, you feel the structure of the coral like in a coral leaf. The sea anemone is a toxic predator. This is a sea anemone, and these guys are covered with the nematocysts or the cnidocysts. And the job of this sea anemone that's here in green is to eat little fishies like this guy. So why is this sea anemone not eating this cute little Nemo-like clownfish? And that's because the clownfish, like Nemo in the Disney movie, they have a symbiosis with the sea anemones. They live in the sea anemone, and the sea anemone does not eat them. And that's where they can hide from bigger fish that would like to eat them. And why don't the sea anemones eat them? Well, it's not because the sea anemones are nice. It's because the clownfish has evolved a way of hiding from the sea anemone. So this part of the sea anemone and that part of the sea anemone, they are touching the clownfish, but they don't know it. If they knew it, they would eat that clownfish, okay? But clownfish make a special kind of slime that hides their fishiness from the anemone. And the clownfish is all the time like brushing up against the little parts, the tentacles of the sea anemone, and they pick up the different proteins that are in these tentacles. They even pick up some of the cnidocysts. And that way, when this part of the sea anemone is touching that guy, the sea anemone just thinks it's touching another one of its own tentacles. So the sea anemone hides in there. There's a very, very happy clownfish inside of this sea anemone. All righty. Coral are polyp forms of cnidarians that live in a colony. Coral, they are cnidarians, so they are capable of eating. However, most of the nutrition that they get from farming algae inside of their cells. So here's a polyp. That's not a coral. That's a hydra. But they grab algae from the water and they tuck them inside of their cells and they say, hey, I will give you a nice home to live in where you will be safe and no sponge can eat you. If you will share the products of photosynthesis with me, and the algae says deal. And so here we have got the beautiful color of coral, the beautiful colors of coral. Darn it. the beautiful colors of coral, they actually are not the color of the animal themselves. The animal themselves has no color really at all. The beautiful colors of coral come from the algae that are being farmed inside of the bodies of these polyp-form cnidarians. You may have heard of an effect that global climate change is having on coral. Coral are residents of the ocean, and they have not evolved the ability to withstand changes in their environment. So changes of pH, that seems minor to us land creatures, is just really extreme if you are an ocean creature. And so coral are not very good at withstanding changes in pH or changes of temperature. And right now on planet Earth, our seas are warmer and more acid than they used to be, measurably. And that is killing off all of the coral. So if any of you want to see the Great Barrier Reef around Australia someday, go soon, because it's probably going to be extinct in your lifetime. It'll probably be extinct in my lifetime, actually. And one of the first things that's happened when coral get bummed out is, for reasons we don't understand, they boot out their algae partners. And so then they are trying to survive with even less food. I know it doesn't seem like a smart thing to do. But when they boot out their partners, instead of being brilliantly colored, they look white, and that is termed coral bleaching. So if you ever hear about coral bleaching, now you know what they're talking about. So coral has like such a diversity of forms. We think of the kind of coral that makes up a coral reef, the very hard kind of coral that kind of vaguely looks like the surface of a brain, but they can look like fans, they can look kind of like octopuses or something like that. There is a wide diversity, and you'll notice that they've got different colors because they house different algae inside of them. Alrighty, we will pick up with the worms next.